and welcome to Talkin' Tales, where we share stories about our animal companions, their unique personalities, their zany antics, and the heartbreak of saying goodbye. I'm your host, Paula Barnett. Sometimes when you adopt a pet, their time with you is much shorter than expected. In this episode, we learn about 5 ferrets whose time in my family was brief but will not be forgotten. In July of 2022, I met a handsome champagne-colored senior ferret named Charlie. He had been in at least 2 shelters previously. He was impossible not to love, and I adopted him with his 2 friends, Spunky and Milo, who would become known as Silver Milo. Charlie was about 5 years old, quiet and unassuming, but loved cuddles and gently explored and interacted with his new siblings during playtime. As with many ferrets of his age, he received several medications daily, but unlike some ferrets, he didn't mind taking them, especially since he knew he would be getting a bowl of soupies afterwards. He quickly made many friends, most notably with his sister Sprinkles. After his first playtime, when he was ready to curl up for a nap, he sought me out, climbed up onto my chest, curled up, and fell asleep. Whenever he wasn't asleep on me, wasn't having soupies, or wasn't playing, he was snuggled up with at least one, but usually multiple, of his siblings. When it came time for photo shoots, with bow ties and outfits, he cooperated and posed handsomely. Charlie seemed a perfect fit with his new family, which made what happened in September of that year that much more heartbreaking. In mid-September, Charlie suddenly had no appetite, not even for a nice warm bowl of soupies, which was one of his favorite things. He looked dehydrated. I took him to my exotic vet as an emergency case, and he spent the better part of the day being examined and treated. As the test results came in, we got a clear picture of what was going on. Charlie was in advanced kidney failure. He felt miserable, and nothing we were doing was helping. I've encountered cases of kidney failure before, and if they're in the early stages, you can keep them healthy and happy for a good long while with fluids and supplements. Charlie's case was different. Nothing was helping him. And so, late in the afternoon, on September 14th, 2022, we helped Charlie out of his failing body. In June of 2023, I adopted 4 ferrets, including one beautiful 2-year-old little silver lady with special needs, named Buttons. She looked like a smaller version of my ferret Rhea, who passed in early 2020. Buttons was not mobile. Her back legs didn't really work, and her front legs were very weak. She could stand somewhat for brief periods, though her legs would shake and wobble. She was very small for her age, but her eyes were bright. Buttons preferred napping in sleep sacks, but only the larger ones, so she could share them with friends. I made some small changes in one of the cages to accommodate her needs, placing a large sleep sack in a central location, with food and water bowls just in front of them. Buttons had no problem reaching her food and water when she wanted a snack. I had Buttons scheduled for a full exam, as I wanted to understand what exactly her condition was, and if there was anything we could do to help her. During playtime, I made sure there was an extra blanket just for Buttons to hang out on, and I got some special toys that she could play with, wooden puzzles where she could move the pieces around to uncover a treat. As she was underweight, I made sure she got to have some soupies. She ate them with her siblings that received daily medications, even though she didn't need any medications. After a few days, I decided to put one of the bowls of soupies on her blanket, which encouraged her siblings to come and share soupies with her. And they did. One of her siblings specifically really took to her, Spunky. Spunky would spend extra time with Buttons, and was one of the ferrets who would stop by multiple times during playtime to hang out with her. As I noted in Spunky's story in the previous episode, Spunky had a history of befriending female ferrets who had health issues and would pass away and break his heart. Unfortunately, Buttons would be another one of those who would do that, but not quite yet. Things started looking up for Buttons. While she never put on any significant weight, her new friends motivated her to try to be active. Of course, she was never running around, but I recall one specific day when she settled into her sleep sack, and several of her friends had settled into a barrel on the far side of the cage from where her sleep sack was. I watched as little Buttons stood up fully and marched confidently over to the barrel and curled up with her friends. Her legs did not shake or wobble. For a brief few moments, she moved like a typical ferret. I was hopeful that this was a sign that her condition was improving. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Just a few days later, on August 8th, 2023, I found that Buttons had passed away quietly in her sleep. It was afterwards that I learned about rickets, whose symptoms described exactly what I was witnessing with Buttons. Unfortunately, if it isn't treated virtually immediately when they are born, there isn't much to be done when they're grown up, and the condition can cause an early death due to heart failure. Buttons was adorable and inspirational, and well loved by her human and her siblings. The same day that I adopted Buttons, I was made aware of a senior female sable ferret in need of a home. I hadn't met her, but I agreed to give her a home. Her name was Roxy. She was at least 6 years old. The human who had her was heartbroken to give her up, but felt it was the right thing to do, as she wasn't getting the care and attention she deserved. Prior to meeting her, the person facilitating the adoption warned me that she had just then met Roxy, and that Roxy was in much worse shape than expected. Roxy was not able to stand or walk, and her breathing was abnormal. She was confined to a bin lined with blankets. I did not back out of the adoption. I agreed to give Roxy a home, and that is what I did. I picked her up and brought her home. I learned that one of her legs had been broken at one point, and it did not heal properly, so it was essentially pointing in the wrong direction. Roxy had not been eating properly and was getting no exercise due to her leg. She had been prescribed one common ferret medication for adrenal disease, but had not been receiving it regularly. The more immediate concern for me was her breathing. It seemed labored. I made Roxy as comfortable as I could, and her siblings got to meet her. Her big canine brother Harry came over to her and said hello. I had planned to schedule her for a complete exam, but as I continued to monitor her overnight, I felt she needed to be seen on an emergency basis. So that morning, I took her to an emergency appointment. I learned that my vet was familiar with Roxy. They had taken care of her years ago, but her human at the time never brought her back for follow-up care. They were heartbroken to see the state she was in now. The vet ran a series of tests and arrived at a clear conclusion. Roxy was suffering. Her heart was surrounded by fluid, but her kidneys were also in bad shape. That's a difficult situation, as you need to push fluid in to help the kidneys, but you need to pull fluid out to help the heart. After extensive discussion with the vet, we agreed that attempting any treatment would just prolong her suffering. And so with love, we made the decision to free Roxy from her failing body. I knew her for only a single day, but I loved her, and she will forever be part of my family. In June of 2025, I was asked if I could give a home to another senior female sable ferret who had not been receiving the care and attention she needed. I didn't hesitate. Unlike Roxy, this little one had no outward physical issues. She was bright-eyed and active when I met her, and she fit right in with her new siblings. She was an explorer, not a troublemaker, and didn't make messes or try to get into anything she shouldn't get into. As I understood it, she didn't really get playtime, and she was an only ferret in her previous home. She quickly got used to exploring during playtime and snuggling in a cuddle pile with her new siblings. Despite being 6 years old, she didn't come with a name. I named her Nova. I was enjoying seeing her thrive, and although I knew she was a senior, I wish that she could have had at least a couple more years to make up for the playtime and cuddles that she didn't get before. That, however, was not meant to be. Barely 1 month later, on July 2nd, 2025, I had to rush her to an emergency appointment. It turned out that Nova, like Charlie, was in advanced kidney failure. And also like Charlie, none of the treatments we tried were easing her pain. The excitement of being in a new home with playtime and new friends masked the symptoms for a while, but eventually the reality of her failing body won out. And later that day, we said goodbye to Nova. Later that month, a person was looking to rehome their ferret after his other friends had passed away. I agreed to give him a home. I was told he was playful and gentle and about 5 years old, so I suspected he'd fit right in, as I had several around that age who were also playful and gentle. His name was Fizzgig. When I first met him, both his appearance and his disposition immediately reminded me of Dennis, who had passed away a little more than a year earlier. And as I suspected, he fit right in, dashing around with his new friends during playtime, going for a swim in the ball pit, enjoying soupies and cuddling up in big cuddle piles. Fizz enjoyed being on the bottom of the cuddle pile. Fizzgig was a perfect fit, and all was going quite well. But as happens with some ferrets, that all changed suddenly. A month later, he didn't want to eat. Not taking any chances, I got him right in to see the vet. He had a nasty infection, low blood glucose, and bad kidneys. They worked on him all day, and he spent the next 2 days with the vet for constant care. He received a blood transfusion from a young, healthy ferret. Despite receiving IV dextrose, his blood glucose had actually decreased. His calcium levels were low. At a few points, things were looking up, but then he started having seizures. At first, it was a small seizure, but then he had a screaming seizure. Ultimately, his body shut down, and Fizzgig left on his own terms. My time with Charlie, Buttons, Roxy, Nova, and Fizzgig was much too short. Each of them had their own physical ailments, whether visible or not. No matter how brief their time, I'm happy that I got to know and love them, and see them enjoy what time they could with new friends. Their memorials hang on the wall right alongside those of their siblings who went before and after them. None will ever be forgotten. Rest in peace, little ones. If you'd like to share a story about a special pet, visit us at talkintalespodcast.com or on Facebook at facebook.com/talkintales. That's TALKINTAILS. No matter what podcast app you choose, please take a moment to rate and review the show and share it with a friend. It helps us find new listeners, which means we can bring you more stories. I also invite all listeners of this podcast to listen to The Adventures of Skeeter, which is available as a separate podcast. The Adventures of Skeeter is a fun, fictionalized series based on real stories from Skeeter's life, done as an old-time radio show with sound effects, humor, and a fake ad at the start of every episode, where Skeeter or one of his siblings is advertising a ferret-related product or service inspired by their actual behaviors and obsessions. You can find the adventures of Skeeter on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Just search for Talkin' Tales: The Adventures of Skeeter.